All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today we're going to talk about the trims on our structure here. So before we get going, don't forget we have a Patreon group that's for self-builders, people who want to build their own home, who want to build their own building. We talk about different self-building topics. You get to ask us questions. We do it live. You get to be part of a community. It's an awesome thing. Check it out. Secondly, if you want to design your own post frame home or building, email us, design at Mr. Post Frame, and we can help you out with that as well. But let's go ahead and jump into the show, and we're going to talk about trims. All right, well, we're putting up trims as we wait for our steel. So I'm going to go through each of the trims that we use, kind of bottom to top. And the first one that I use, typically you don't see this. I use this on all of our basically residential or like shops. You wouldn't use this if you were putting up like an ag building, just because the it would get tore up pretty good with animals like urine. It's real acidic. It'd probably deteriorate over time. But I've had real good results with this. And what this is just an L10 fascia. So it's 10 inches. We use a 2x12 grade board, and this I put over my grade board. So where your bottom trim starts, your square base, below that you can't see your grade board. So it does a couple things. It protects your grade board, and it just is much more visibly pleasing when you look at your building. You bring your landscape up to your square base, so you're seeing very little of this, but it does offer protection. So I'll show you how it kind of looks once it's on. But to make this real easy, I make outside corners and inside corners where I need. And so just to show you how this works, I'll take this outside corner and it'll slide right on that like that. Then when we run these side pieces, they can just come to here, and we don't have to bend big long pieces. Now you're not going to see most of this anyway once you bring the grade up with your dirt and landscaping, and then where your side of your steel starts. So we have this all on, and it's just a, like I said, it's a fascia, and it just goes on the bottom like that. We screw it on down here, and then our square base will come along here and get nailed on, and then that'll hold that all tight. And then you have a nice finished color matched grade board trim. And I just think it looks really nice. It's a nice add, especially for a post frame home. So the next piece of trim that we will put on is the square base. Okay, so this is the trim piece that goes at the bottom of your steel. So if you have wainscoting, your wainscoting will sit on this. If you don't have wainscoting, your steel will sit on this. And this does a couple things. One, it finishes off the bottom really nice and keeps anything from being able to go up into those ribs. So it's important that this gets put on nice and level. We set it with a laser. But like I said, you can see now this will sit roughly about right there, and then your steel will sit on top of it. So now you can see how the bottom of that grade board will be trimmed out. However, your grade will be brought up to here. So you have grade board that goes below the ground, offering you protection from animals digging. I mean, obviously, I don't know, I pay attention to my building, so if I see something digging, but I usually use 1-inch river rock, and animals stay out of that anyway, and I bring it right up to here. But if there is any spots, you can't see the grade board, and it protects it over time. All right, so while the guys are putting square base on, I'm gonna start trimming out our garage door openings, and this is the trim I like to use. They call this sliding door trim. So this is the jam thickness right here. So we have a 2x6 column, so that's 5.5 inches. And then we have 1.5 inches girt on the inside, 1.5 inches girt on the outside, and then this sticks out 1.5 inches. And the reason I like this, and you'll see once I put it up, is because I can then put a J trim right here, and it just is way easier trimming your garage door openings out. If your steel doesn't work out just perfectly, you know, you can plan when you're designing these buildings, but sometimes it just doesn't work out, depending on how many garage doors you have, where maybe you have a rib that ends up landing where you don't want it. With this, it allows me to put a J trim in there, and I can pretty much make it work no matter where the rib lines up. And it's a nice clean look, versus some trims, your rib has to be perfect for the trim to come over and cover the rib, and sometimes that's difficult to do. So as far as a DIY, this is a little bit more difficult cutting, but at the end it's really easy. It doesn't really matter where your rib lands. So you can see this is where the actual top of the door jamb is, and then we have to add 1.5 inches for that outside area, so when our top one comes across, it has something to overlap. And this trims this out nice, and then we just lay a J trim in here, and then it doesn't matter if your rib doesn't line up exactly where you want it, you're still okay. So then up there you can see that it sticks up an extra 1.5 inches, because then our top piece will come across and cover all that. All right, so with my garage doors, where these corners are, if you try to cut those too tight, they're really difficult to get your top piece in without scratching it. So I make these little corners. It's just 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and I slide it in there just to finish that off and make it look nice. It will get caulking in there once it's all done, but I like just to add this in there. See, that just fits in there, and then I don't have to cut this. Like, I need to give myself a little bit of room to get these in there without scratching each other. And then the bead of silicone or caulk will get put right there. All right, guys, so from this line to this line is from there to there. And then what we do here is we angle 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches out, and cut an angle there. So this will all get cut out, this will all get cut out. And then I make a little 1/2 inch flap that I can bend over the end of those side jambs, and you'll see that when we put it up. So I got this all marked. I'm gonna cut it out and see how we did. Bend that over. See how I look on this end. Yeah, not too bad. That just screws in, I just gotta clean up the edge. All right, so we got this all up here. I'll actually pull this Tyvek out and bring it over the top. You can see how that 1/2 inch bend over comes here, and then this angle comes up about 1/4 inch down. I just feel like I get a lot nicer finish like that and it kind of holds it better. So now we can run J trim up to here, and then we'll run J trim along the top and out. You don't have to do J trim along the top here, which we may or may not. Just kind of depends on how it sits and how it looks. But I'll definitely run J trim up the side. That's not the easiest thing to do sometimes. I mean, this is 10 feet 6 inches I'm trying to get in, but this is the sliding door trim, but I still put a J trim above it because I like the way it looks. And then I do this the same way we do windows. We put the J trim in after the steel is up, and then we extend it out past the side J so that any water, there's not going to be a lot of water up here because of the soffit, but any water will come out over here and down the side. You can see our cut. You can see our cut is up high, so the water runs out and just comes off the end of this J. Our cut is up here, so there's no danger of water getting in behind the steel there. And then this J extends up behind the steel, and then we'll run screws through, secure this all in place. Alright, so here is our wainscot trim, and they call this a double angle. So you can see this bottom part will sit over the top of your wainscot, and then your steel on top will sit right down here. So what we usually do is set this up 1/4 inch off of our wainscot. That way you have a little leeway if you have any variation at all in your steel. And sometimes, I mean, you could have a little bit of an 1/8 off or something. Even though we set this with grade stick, it can vary ever so slightly, because where you overlap your bottom trims, sometimes that can bump your steel up just a little bit. So we'll set this up 1/4 inch. That'll give us the leeway we need all the way across. And then our top steel will slide up into the J, and then come down and sit on top of this double angle. Okay, sure. All right, guys, so we'll talk about the FJ channel right now. So FJ is used at the top of your side walls, end walls, where your side steel and your soffit meets typically. So this right here is 7/8 to 1 inch usually, and that accepts your side steel. And then up here, depending on the size of this opening, will either accept soffit or another piece of steel. So at our top of our walls, we have this made to be a 1/2 inch, so it'll accept soffit. On our porches, where we use steel on the ceiling, this will be the same width as this here. And basically, it's just a double J. They call it FJ, so you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. All right, guys, so we're going to talk about another couple pieces of trim. So the way we like to do our soffits, instead of having this bird box at the end, I guess is what they call it, I like to keep this flat. So I'll end my side soffit right here at the end. So that L10 trim that I use at the bottom to cover my grade board, I'll take a drop off of that, whatever's left, and I'll make a piece of trim that will finish off this little triangle. So I notch out 1.5 inches, so this will slide up in there. Notch it out here, so it will slide up underneath my FJ. And then my steel will come to here. This will go up behind there, and then my corner trim will trim this all out. We'll show you that detail when you get it, but you slide this up here. That goes in behind. Slide that in there right there. So now that's all color matched. Now I'll take a piece of 1/2 inch J, run it a little bit long, and bring it all the way down to this point. Then we can continue our soffit down to here. So I'll make that piece right now. I'll go up in there about there. So that's going to slide right up in there and come down and tuck into here. And then we can run our soffit right down in there, and then the fascia will come over the top and trim this all out. All right, guys, we are finishing up all these details, and we're trimming out this corner. We have this wainscot trim up here. We do that. It kind of defines this gable, makes it look real nice. So we just, in this case, we're just dropping a little J trim down here to trim that out. And then we'll use a corner trim out here. And they make 4-inch and 6-inch corner. So if your ribs don't land where a 6-inch can work, you try to figure all that out beforehand. But sometimes you just end up having to use, like on this corners of this garage, we're using 4. So on one side I'll measure up to here, and then the other side I'll measure up to here, so the trim will come over, drop down, and go over. And you'll see how that fits here in a second if it's not so windy. All right, so you can see we cut this one height, this the other height, and then you have to leave 7/8 of an inch here. So this return goes back and hits the end right here. You'll see that once we get it up. You good?
Yep.
You can see that, right?
Yep.
All right, guys, real quick, I'm gonna go through with you the trims we have here on the building. get lots of questions, and if you're getting a building kit, it kind of can get confusing. So I'm just going to go from bottom to top with you. So this is really not a standard trim. This is something I added to our builds. It's basically an L10 fascia trim. I have it bent for me. Goes under the grade board, kind of goes up the side. Then we start with our base trim, which the bottom of that is the interior finished grade of the concrete floor. So this square base is what our side steel sits on. Then obviously we have our wainscot. Most of our customers like the same color. That's just personal preference. You can change the color. They call this a double angle or wainscot trim. So that's the trim that obviously goes over the wainscot. You slide your steel up in there, and then your top steel goes over the top. We use J-trim around all the windows. We have another double angle up there, which you would not need. We just add that detail because I think it looks really nice on the residential, even on a building, because it breaks that up. Makes it a little bit easier to handle these pieces, but it also adds a nice linear break to that. And then up there in the corner we have an FJ. So it's a double trim. It serves two purposes. It accepts your steel going up, and then it accepts your soffit going in. So that's up there at the top. And then we have our corners. You can get 6-inch corners, which is what these are, or a 4-inch corner, or you can have pretty much whatever you want custom bent. Under the porch, same thing. We got our double angle. You can see the FJ right there is a little bit better, see it a little better, but it accepts the steel. In this case, this is a 1-inch FJ, so we're putting normal steel across here, so that's 1 inch on the bottom and then 1 inch on the top, where up there it's 1 inch on the bottom and then 1/2 inch because soffit's going in there, and our soffit's a 1/2 inch. J-trim around the doors, windows. We'll take you over to the garage. We have an inside corner between the garage and the house. And then I'll show you the kind of trim we use around our garage doors. So anywhere you have an inside corner, we use this inside corner trim. You can get this in 6 and 4 inch as well. Just screws in here and here, and it finishes out that corner real nice. Tucks up under your double angle, sits on the top, and then tucks up into your FJ. We use what they call a sliding door trim on our garage doors. So you specify your jamb thickness, and then the top one kind of overlaps and you put an angle. But then I also will run a J-trim right up alongside that. That detail, you don't have to do that, but I like that for the simple fact that if my rib lines up there, I can trim it out right. Most of the time I can avoid that. There have been occasions where I have not been able to keep that from happening. So I feel like this is a good way, at least for me, to trim these doors out, and I think it ends up looking really nice. Obviously you can see here they chose black fascia because they're gonna have black gutters. So you're literally not gonna see any of the fascia. So that's one thing to consider. If you get a little oil canning in your fascia, don't worry. You're gonna put gutters on, you're never gonna see it anyway. All right, guys, so that's going to be a wrap on trims. If you have any further questions on those, leave them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. As always, we appreciate you watching. If you haven't, hit the like, subscribe button, and we will catch you on the next video.